Good evening. Welcome to the Crown Hill Journey, and happy Holy Saturday if you celebrate Easter. It's a time of great celebration in my faith, being Catholic, but it's also a little bit of a challenge this year since we're all supposed to be self-quarantining and not itching our faces like I just did. But anyway, we are here together, and that's the best part. So, and I am public tonight so everyone can see me. Last night I recorded the whole thing in the privacy of my room and no one else could join me. So I'm glad that you're with me tonight and can see me. Right, Kathleen? You can see me. Yes. Okay, good. Thank you. Um, so, Tonight I usually have wine. Last night I had Bailey's if you were with me last night because it was a long Friday. Tonight, ooh, a big treat. It's Prosecco with some raspberry liqueur to make a cure. Why? Because I am celebrating. Today I finished my author's edits for my 5th book. Yay! Hooray! It's called Money or Love. Internet Dating from the Far Side of 40. It's fiction, totally different from anything I've written, and hopefully it will be something that you will enjoy. Tomorrow it will go to my editor. She'll get it back to me in about a week. Then it'll go to my layout and design editor and cover designer, and it should be ready to go to the publisher in May. The question will be, will the publisher be able to publish in May? So we shall see. I have a speaking engagement for June 1st, so fingers crossed. So that's why we're celebrating with champagne tonight. Yippee. So please join me if you have some. Crown Hill. Tonight we are in chapter 13, the second last chapter in book 2, which is Edward, and stuff's getting real. Last night we were in the dining room with Sir Arthur and Edward Conan Doyle and Rose for her first day in coming to work for Sir Arthur, transcribing notes for a book that he's writing. It's really a subterfuge to get Rose back in the house so the men can see if they can cause the spirit to return. It has not returned since the day Maria and the girls saw it in the mirror of the sideboard. So Sir Arthur's pretty convinced that it doesn't exist anymore, that it's gone. And after Rose came yesterday and spent the day with them transcribing, nothing happened. Not an inch of any kind of spiritual activity. So Rose went home. Sadly, she didn't want to go, but she went home. Sir Arthur celebrated that he was right, and Edward relaxed, all of them believing that everything would be fine. So let us return to Crown Hill. And if you get a chance, if you have not already, check my post that I did for Crown Hill tonight. It has actual pictures of Sir Arthur Conan Doyle and Edward Randall. So you can start to get an idea of who these men are. I'm sorry I didn't post it earlier in the book. It's been so long since I wrote this book. It was back in 2014. So it's been a while. So I'll try to reel out some more of those pictures as we move through this book and onto the 3rd. But for now, let's return. Crown Hill, a novel of love, life, and the afterlife. Book 2, Edward, Chapter 13. Quick sip. And glasses. The day dawned with a sweltering air, draping across Crown Hill like a thick woolen blanket. In the early morning light, Agnes was busy cooking, perspiration freely streaming down her face, arms, and legs. The accomplished housekeeper was determined to produce the entire day's meals before the stifling humidity intensified and made her kitchen tasks unbearable. As she put the finishing touches on an apple kuchen that she hoped would suffice as dessert for both lunch and dinner, Agnes began aware of stirrings overhead. Sir Arthur's guest quarters were located directly above the kitchen. From the noises reverberating through the ceiling, Crown Hill's visitor was up and about. No doubt in minutes he would be downstairs, asking for his morning pot of tea with milk and sugar. Efficiently, the housekeeper set up water to boil while cleaning up the remnants of her meal preparations. Within minutes, Agnes was pouring steaming water through a wire infuser into a ceramic teapot. Immediately, the fragrance of Sir Arthur's favorite brew saturated the humid kitchen air. Tea sipping was part of the famed author's morning ritual, and he brought along his preferred blend of black tea, spiced with jasmine and a touch of lavender, wherever he traveled. As if drawn to the scent, Sir Arthur promptly appeared in the kitchen doorway.
I say, Agnes, you are a bit of all right having my tea ready. I was just about to ask if you would brew me a spot. You must have read my mind.
While Agnes liked the famed author well enough, his reference to mind reading made her uncomfortable. In fact, a lot of what was going on at Crown Hill since Sir Arthur's arrival was bothersome. Like yesterday's broken vase. It was not possible that vase simply fell off the sideboard. It just didn't make sense. No one was in the dining room when it dropped from its secure spot. Nothing was taking place that could have caused it to crash to the floor. It was the strangest thing, and for the life of her, Agnes could not figure out how or why it had happened. Then there was the work that the famous author was undertaking with young Rose Jennings. Agnes wasn't quite sure what that was all about, but she knew she didn't like it, even if everything seemed above board and in order. One thing Agnes did know was that any time she walked into the Randalls' hilltop home these days, she had a knot in her stomach, sort of a dull pain that would not let up until she left Crown Hill at day's end. The thing about Agnes's gut instinct was that they never failed her. It was only a matter of time until she figured it all out. Edward was next to appear in Agnes's sauna-like workspace, following closely on Sir Arthur's heels. Their dual presence caused Agnes to issue an edict that breakfast would be served directly on the porch. She instructed the two men to go and wait for their meal there. Tact was definitely not the housekeeper's strongest trait, but her delicious food persuaded the men to overlook her quirks and brusque directives. Heading to the porch like properly schooled boys, Edward and Sir Arthur settled into their now regular seats and exchanged early morning pleasantries to pass the time. It was Sir Arthur who eventually addressed the subject silently looming between them.
So, my dear fellow, in the light of a new day, how do you feel about young Rose and this whole spirit business?
Edward was caught off guard by the direct line of questioning. He had come downstairs early, hoping that they could enjoy one of Agnes's hearty breakfasts before tackling the worrisome topic. Yet since nothing untoward had happened on Rose's first visit, Edward's concern had lessened.
Well, Doyle, I have to admit, yesterday was quite a relief. And after reflecting on all that did not happen, I am inclined to lean your way and believe that whatever appeared in the mirror to my family may very well have been an anomaly, an apparition now departed.
While Edward's words were positive, Sir Arthur sensed the lack of conviction in his friend's tone. The astute author understood that Edward was disturbed by the possibilities of all that had transpired in his cherished summer home. However, being an experienced spiritualist, Sir Arthur knew that dealing with supernatural activity required a strong character and a resolute mind. At the moment, he felt his host possessed neither. Just as the Scotsman was about to broach the topic of Edward's mindset, Agnes appeared with a tray of luscious breakfast treats. She began by serving the men individual steaming pots of tea. Next came bowls of sliced cantaloupe adorned with fresh-picked raspberries, followed by plates of scrambled eggs topped with cheddar cheese and coarsely crumbled bacon. Finally came the breakfast pièce de résistance, Agnes's secret recipe, sticky buns dripping with caramel and nuts. Confirming that the gentlemen were content, Agnes left them to delight in the summer morning repast. At the end of every breakfast, the two men had developed a tradition of pouring a second cup of tea and discussing and debating whatever topic inspired them. On this steamy summer morn, however, both men agreed to forego their favorite hot beverage and instead take a stroll to the pond. There, Edward suggested they could enjoy a lazy row in the boat, should they be so inclined. During their leisurely walk, the two men became completely engaged in literary conversation. Upon reaching the pond, rather than rowing, they chose to continue their chat seated upon a bench alongside a marsh of thickly clustered cattails. The two men became part of the rural landscape, and time drifted, becoming meaningless.
It was only a menacing black cloud of driving rain and powerful thunder that forced Edward and Sir Arthur away from the pond and hurriedly back to the porch. There, under protective cover, the two realized the morning had passed and the time was just short of noon. Rose would be arriving soon. The duo made a quick change of clothes from damp to dry and returned to the dining room for lunch. Considering that they were still rather full from breakfast, the men declined Agnes's rosemary chicken salad on garden greens and instead chose to eat only the bowls of her summer specialty, chilled tomato basil soup. To complement the light lunch, the dedicated housekeeper served fresh berries accompanied by a basket of biscuits and a side plate of freshly whipped cream. The gentlemen's enjoyment of the delightfully cold broth kept them completely unaware of Rose's quiet presence as she slipped into the room. "Good afternoon, sirs," the young girl offered with a softly respectable voice.
"Well, well, Edward, see here who has joined us," Sir Arthur replied with a chuckle. "Good afternoon to you, my dear. I see that our work yesterday did not discourage your return."
"Oh, no, sir. In fact, I know that I'm a bit early again, but I just could not wait any longer." The girl's innocence never ceased to touch Edward's heart. In fact, he was coming to view Rose much like one of his own.
"Come and join us at the table, young lady. Agnes has prepared a most special dessert of fresh berries and cream over biscuits. There is more here than Sir Arthur and I need, so please serve yourself and enjoy."
It did not take extra encouragement for the usually shy girl to follow Edward's directive. Assuming the exact place she had occupied the day before, Rose eagerly scooped and devoured a generous portion of the sweet summer treat, happily licking her spoon for every last morsel. It was a moment blissfully focused on the joy of food all around the table. "Thank you very much, sirs. Now, may I please begin my work?"
"Of course, child," Sir Arthur answered. "Everything is just as you left it, on the sideboard."
For the first time since Rose had entered the room, Edward's conscience triggered an alarm throughout his being. The simple pleasure the innocent girl had displayed in eating the dessert of berries and cream had melted Edward's heart. He would not be able to manage it if anything unpleasant happened to this sweet child.
"Doyle, can I speak with you on the porch for a minute?" Edward nodded toward the screen door. "Rose, we will return shortly."
Puzzled, the Scotsman followed his host into the sultry midday air.
"I can't continue this, Doyle. We must escort Rose home and meet again with her mother. This time we will honestly explain what has happened here and why we would like her daughter to spend time with us. There really is just no other way that I can manage having Rose here at Crown Hill." "That would be absolutely fine, old man. Whatever you think is best. I really don't have—"
Doyle's response was cut off by a wail unlike any the two had ever experienced. To add to the shock, the piercing scream seemed to be emanating from the dining room. In tandem, the two men pushed through the narrow screen doorway into the house. There they found Rose, no longer peacefully seated at the dining room table. Rather, she was standing stiffly before the sideboard, staring at the mirror. Although Edward and Sir Arthur saw only their own reflections, it was clear Rose was envisioning something other than herself, and seemed to be engaged in conversation with whatever or whoever it was. "You don't belong here. You need to go away. And what have you done with her? You must let her come back now." As Rose spoke out, Edward carefully moved toward her. Independently, Sir Arthur drew closer to the sideboard to inspect the mirror. Again, there was nothing to see but his image and the reflection of the others. As Edward stood by Rose's side and tried to comprehend what was happening, the entranced young girl lashed out in anger yet again. "I am not afraid of you. No matter what you say, I will find her and help her. You cannot stop me."
The two men looked across Rose's tense body, unsure of how best to proceed. The fact that they had been outside on the porch when Rose's transformation began left them no clear idea of what was happening or how it all began. Their confusion became further compounded as a scent of roses filled the room. Both men noticed the sweet scent at the same moment that they realized a further transformation in the young girl. Suddenly, her persona took on a forceful aura as she turned to Edward and spoke in a voice unknown to him. I have been waiting for you for such a long time. Now that you are finally here, you must help me. The pleading voice clearly did not belong to the child, but if not Rose, then whom? Edward's years of seance experience with Emily French allowed him to realize the speaker was most likely a spirit who had taken over Rose's being in an attempt to directly communicate. His first inclination was to try and identify the voice. You say you've been waiting for me? Who are you? How do you know me? The questions caused Rose to forcefully grab Edward's arm in reply. I have been part of this house for many years. I have watched you and your family come and go, always biding my time. Now at last, the goodness and the light of this child has been provided to me as a means of reaching out to you as I try to end my tortured existence. Forever cease my forced wandering. Please, you must help me. Before Edward could reply, Sir Arthur called out in loud warning, Edward, look up! Turning toward Doyle, Edward saw the ornate brass chandelier above the dining room table swinging in a wide pendulum motion. The force of the swaying light caused its crystal globes to release into the air like targeted rockets, all of them headed directly toward Edward and Rose. Without thought, Edward grabbed Rose and jumped away toward the wall, contorting his body as a protective shield over the young girl. At the same time, Sir Arthur took cover beneath the dining room table. The tumultuous commotion brought Agnes immediately upstairs from the fruit cellar. As she pushed through the swinging door between the kitchen and the dining room, the housekeeper recoiled in shock. The long, nagging knot in her stomach intensified as she witnessed the chandelier arcing over the table and shards of crystal glass covering the floor. Looking further, she became aware of the defensively curled body of Sir Arthur under the table. In the far corner of the room, she saw Rose up against a wall, Edward Randall seemingly forcing his body against hers. Clearly, the child was struggling as she called out in a distorted voice. This cannot happen, she wailed. He cannot be allowed to do this. Not now. Not when I finally have a chance. Please help me. Agnes rushed toward the girl, intent on answering her pleas. What are you doing? Agnes shouted at her employer as she aggressively attempted to move him off of Rose. What is wrong with you? Why are you forcing yourself on her? Their dispute became instantly irrelevant. As with one last haunting cry, Rose collapsed into Edward's arms. Get away, Agnes, Edward chided the belligerent woman. Give the child some air, for heaven's sakes. Doyle, come quickly and help me carry Rose to the parlor. As all rushed to the aid of the frighteningly comatose child, a strong strike of thunder shook the windows of Crown Hill, and a bolt of lightning touched the land all around, while a powerful storm of an unearthly kind continued to rage within. So it began, as disturbingly as I feared, and more frightening than I ever imagined. I had never experienced such an occurrence in my century and a half of existence. Even when Mary's spirit first came into me, I never lost control of my being. Yet in those moments when Rose became entranced, I was nothing more than an observer of all going on within me. Seeing Rose as she lay limp on the floor was distressing.
but it was the voice. It was the echo of the voice flowing from within her that was most concerning. I knew that voice. I recognized it immediately. Mary, where are you? You must talk to me. Why did you do that to young Rose? Nary a response did I receive. Poor Rose had only just come into my shelter, and already she was suffering the consequences of her trusting nature. I could not let this continue. There had to be a way to connect Mary and Rose without such trauma. Then I heard the voice. Leave the child alone. She does not matter. And stop trying to aid Mary. Her spirit will remain here forever, and you have no power to change that. The words shocked me like an electrical current. It was the same voice from the previous day that had warned me to stay away from Rose. Only this time, there was more. There was a threatening edge to the words that felt intimidating, actually evil. Who is it speaking? I owe you no explanations, House, other than to give you this final warning. Mary is destined to remain here on earth as I deign. She has no choice in the matter, nor do you. You can allow her to be within you, or I will place her otherwise. It matters not to me. Just understand that if you continue to interfere in my plan, I will destroy you. As surely as I cause the vase to shatter and the chandelier's crystal globes to rain down upon you. Fear, dread, and confusion combined to cause hesitation in my response. By the time I gathered my wits and could answer, Rose was awake, the evil within me gone, and Mary was still nowhere to be found. The plot thickens. We have one chapter left in Edward, so whatever's happening here is going to wrap up pretty quickly. I'd love to hear who you think the evil voice is, the evil spirit. We had a few guesses the other night. Somebody got it right, but I'm not going to say who. And when we finish tomorrow night with the final book of Edward, that is in 1921. It will take us into the almost to 1930. And then the next book will be Meg. It will be, I think it's 19 chapters. And it starts in 1995. And it's about a newly divorced woman starting over on a house on the hill in Eden, New York. Sound familiar? I think so. So thank you. I hope you enjoyed. I'm sure reading it, it probably is a little disorienting to you because you can't keep the words in front of you, but I hope that I was able to convey it convincingly enough and that you enjoyed. Please feel free to come back and join me every night from now until the end of April as we finish Crown Hill. If you're new to joining us, every night that I've read is online, so you can go back and catch up. You can also get the manuscript for free. If you would like, go to christinaapt.com #GA for giveaway, and you will get the full Crown Hill manuscript, 290 some pages. So you can read for yourself and even follow along if you like. So again, for the free manuscript, it's christinaapt.com #GA. I wish you a peaceful Holy Saturday and a wonderful, glorious Easter Sunday. If you don't know, tomorrow at 1 o'clock on YouTube, Andrea Bocelli will be singing a concert of hope and peace tomorrow by himself. The only other person in this, it's a Duomo cathedral. I believe it's in Sicily. And the only other person with him will be an organist. So it should be compelling and beautiful and moving and spiritual. And since we can't gather in church, perhaps we can all gather on YouTube tomorrow at 1 o'clock Eastern time and enjoy that. And then tomorrow night at 7:30, come back and we will finish Edward's part in this book. So thank you. It means a great deal to me that you join me, and I look forward to reading with you again tomorrow night. Enjoy the Crown Hill Journey.